often ask the question, how do you get teenagers to give you their phones? Like, don't they just like have the shakes when they hand it over? And the answer is no. They like handing it over. They know that it's good for their brains. They feel it. And I think the connections that they make at camp are so fulfilling and strong that it really gets them through the school year. I mean, they look to those friends in different ways. They all meet up in different cities or call each other on the phone. I just was at a show and someone said that they were writing letters to each other.
I love that.
Which I loved.
Yes.
And so the friendships just really sustain from year to year.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. I'm a summer camp director, writer, and speaker, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents over the past 3 decades. My husband Steve and I are raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 15 to 25. So my interest in raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults is personal as well as professional. In this episode of the podcast, I'm talking with my friend Brooke Cheley Klebe of Cheley, Colorado camps. We cover a whole range of summer camp related topics, including longer camp stays, adjusting to camp and overcoming homesickness, what it's like for teenagers to have the break from electronics that summer camp provides, as well as the ongoing relationships that campers develop at summer camp. Before I share this episode, I want to share a short audio from some interviews I did with campers a few years ago about what it's like to be at camp and be unplugged and off technology for a few weeks.
It's my 5th year at GAC, and I've been coming back to kind of like escape reality, get rid of electronics, and just have like a breath of fresh air.
So I get to come out here and not have my phone. It sounds weird for a teenager to say that, I know, but it's just fun to be able to just not have it, not have to worry about it, not stress about it.
I feel like I have better relationships here with some of my friends than I do back at home, just because you are so hands-on, like with everyone. You don't have your technology in between you and you're not getting sucked into drama and everything in the outside world. Like, you can really just focus on having a good time and enjoying camp.
When you kind of like take away the technology and phones and stuff, you get to really know the person. And I think one thing that I learned was probably that you can make friends just by unplugging and being yourself.
Honestly, it took a few days to get used to going by without it, but as soon as I started hanging out with all the people at GAC, I never missed it once.
I love coming back to camp because I make so many great connections with everyone here, and it's just such a great environment because it's like no electronics, which is really nice.
It's better to communicate by face-to-face, not by just a phone texting.
I don't know how to explain it, just everything feels like better when you're there in person, not on a screen.
You have to talk face-to-face to people, you get much closer to people much quicker, and I feel like everyone's kind of just happier because you don't have to worry about the drama of online and a lot of stuff teen kids have to go through.
To me, GAC means like a place where you make friends without like devices.
Without your electronics, I think it gives you a chance to look people eye to eye.
You have better conversations. You're not looking down at your phone. You talk to people more, which I think is the best part.
It's really nice that you get to unplug and really focus on your friends.
Since all the fun activities, like I don't want to go on my phone anymore.
Every year we have like new technology, and there's always, and with more technology, we're kind of forgetting about nature in our lives. And GAC is like such a wonderful place to come out and be in nature, get to go swimming in a lake and socialize with your cabin and like jump off like a pontoon boat into a lake. And every activity GAC has to offer like pushes you.
I think I've grown into a more social person overall. Without the screens and all the texting and the FaceTiming,
honestly, I got to interact with everyone face to face, and I think that's been a really great experience for me.
I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Brooke in this episode of the podcast, which is episode 96. All right. Well, I am so happy today to have Brooke Cheley here on the podcast. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So, Brooke, why don't you just tell a little bit about Cheley, Colorado Camp?
Okay. We serve children ages 9 to 17, boys and girls, and they come for 27 days. So we have 2 1-month or 27-day terms, and our campers come from all over the country. Last summer we had 48 different states and 16 different countries. So our campers really come from all over the place.
Yeah.
And they have the opportunity to hike and horseback ride, backpack, mountain bike, technical climb. We just built a new high ropes course, and we do stand-up paddleboarding and whitewater rafting and a lot more.
But what I will say is Cheley is very well respected and well known all across the country and among camps as being just an amazing, life-changing program with a very loyal following of long-time families. So you have, how many years have you been around?
This will be our 98th summer, so we're getting ready to celebrate our 100th in 2020. Yeah. So looking out 2 years out to get ready for that.
That is amazing. Well, and I think what I want you to think about and speak about is, what is it that has made generations of these families? I mean, there are families for whom you have 4 generations of kids who have come, like maybe the great-grandparent, the grandparent, the parents, and now the kids are there, right? And what is it that you hear from your families about why they come back to Cheley?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think in just the foundation of it, my great-grandfather was very much into youth developing and having fun, but that really the plus in having fun, and that they were there to really build their character and work on that rather than, their math skills. So I think it's just kind of in our fiber. But parents say they come back because when they see their children return from camp, they see this new sense of confidence and independence and just this freshness about them that maybe they didn't have when they left to go to camp. There's always that element of really unplugging. With it being 27 days, they really have an opportunity to kind of set new habits, and they don't miss their devices. They really don't. One of my favorite things is I'll take the kids to the airport to drop them off. And with our teenagers, you give them their phone back and they often will not turn it on. They don't want to jump back on. And the ones that do turn them on are like, oh my gosh, I have 2,700 Snapchat messages. And it's really, I think it feels, overwhelming. So I love that. Like they don't miss it. I think that with it being 27 days, they really are able to jump into the experience and settle in and make friendships in that time period. And I think aside from making friendships, if there's somebody that they don't like, which is, always happens in life, and it's a skill to learn, they have to work through that. If there's a counselor they don't like, it's not like they can say, I'm only here for a week, it doesn't matter. They have to go through that process and learn how to live with that staff person or live with that other camper because they're going to be there for a while. Same thing with homesickness. They have to work through that because they can't spend the entire 27 days homesick.
So do you feel like, I think, especially on the West Coast, most families do not think of camp as being a long stay. A 27-day stay sounds really long to people out here, whereas it's a very common East Coast practice. And on the East Coast, people go to camp for, they still, I think, go to sometimes 6 or 7 weeks or even 8 weeks over the summer. I think that your uniqueness in this length of stay is something that you're offering that other camps aren't because of that length of stay. What are the biggest concerns that parents have about sending their children for that long? Like when you're talking to them, what is it that's like holding them back from allowing their child to go for that length to camp?
I think to some people it sounds just really long, either to the parent or to the child, and sometimes not both, right? So the child might view it and think, oh my gosh, that's too long. Or the parent doesn't want to let their child go for that length of time. But it goes by so fast. I think it really goes by so fast. That's the thing I hear most with parents that come to pick up their children, that, oh my gosh, it was just gone like that in a blur. And I think one of the things that I love is that I think there's this new appreciation from campers as well as from parents, and the sibling thing I love, that they kind of learn to appreciate their families and their siblings, that they get kind of taken out of that, out of their families for a moment.
It's like you appreciate it more because of the separation.
Yes,
it's like once you haven't been home, you almost appreciate things at home more, right?
Yeah.
Well, my daughter went to Cheley.
I know.
Yes. And I, being a camp person, and she had been to other camps for 2 weeks, and it went super fast for her.
Yeah.
And she had such a great time. And I think, to me, one of the differences, since my camp is mostly just 2 weeks, and I think that's more, common of the stay, like in California especially, I felt like the greatest thing was you guys have the opportunity to just really settle in. Like, I think that when you have, for us, I always feel like the first week is sort of getting settled and kind of overcoming homesickness for kids who are anticipating the length of the stay. Often the really strong feelings are right at the beginning because they think it's, seems long, no matter how long the stay is, whether kids are there for a week or two or whatever. But I think that settling in and that getting to know your group and feeling comfortable and feeling that belonging, it takes a little while to get I don't know what the number of days is or something, but at what point do you feel like maybe first year kids feel pretty settled in?
Oh gosh, I don't think it takes very long. And I love watching that process. I would say 3 days in. And then I think the beauty of it is, there's been a lot of research just how over-programmed our children are. And it's kind of, to here and then there. And they are on this really fast pace. And then even when they have downtime, they're plugged in technology, so it doesn't give them a rest. So with it being that length, they have an opportunity to get enough sleep and to have downtime. And we've kind of changed our tune and all of that. We have an out camping program where they get transed out and they spend the night in a tent and cook over a fire and eat meals. And we used to have lesson plans and say to the staff, okay, you need to have a plan for your morning and your afternoon and make sure that it's structured. And then we came to this point where we said, you know what, let the kids drive it. Let them be bored and see what they come up with. And it's been just really beautiful. The kids love it, and then it makes them feel like they are the ones that are choosing how to spend their time, and also gets in touch with that part of the brain that doesn't get touched during the rest of the year. They're kind of like, well, what do you do when you're in the woods and you have a river or you have dirt? Or I went to go visit an out camp last summer, and they had all built these little fairy houses. And they had like a little competition, and everyone built a fairy house. Now, one of them, I will say, had a picked columbine flower, which is our state flower, in the front yard of the fairy house.
Are you not allowed to pick them?
No.
Oh, dear. Okay.
It's like, this is beautiful, and we should probably not pick those flowers. But it was just neat to see what they come up with.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my other thing, and this is what I noticed from my daughter's experience at Cheley is because of the length of stay, they do get more just sort of time to hang out with each other and more downtime. Whereas in shorter camp stays, I feel like as camps, we want to make sure that kids can do all the things that we offer. And so when you condense a camp stay at a camp, the camp still wants to offer kids everything. So like if a camp stay, like as an example, there's a lot of camps who used to be 2 week stays that now offer 1 week stays. And they're trying to give those 1 week campers, like all the same stuff. And so maybe they can pack in all those activities, but guess what you can't add in is that very valuable downtime, free time, letting kids just that unstructured play. We've actually gone a similar way with, we have for our youngest kids, we have it's kind of like a fake backpacking trip. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to carry a pack, but they go out and they cook over the fire. But the actual agenda is free play out there. Yeah. And same thing. They're building little villages, using things. They're making forts. They're just kind of doing what they want. And it's so beautiful to just watch kids rediscover play. Yeah. And it's so crazy that we now have to, for a lot of these kids, they need to go to camp to have that. But I think that that's one of the magical things about a 27-day, that long of a stay. You guys can take, if you get back from a trip and people are tired, the kids can rest. Yeah. They can get their book out. Yeah. Or whatever. And I think there's that less frenetic feel about it. So it doesn't become yet another thing that you're trying to rush to. Yes.
Yeah, they very much settle in. We weigh their bags and they unpack into the drawers and just settle in.
Yeah, so good. So my daughter, what's the name of the one? She lived in the covered wagons. Yeah. What's that called?
Girls Trails End.
Girls Trails End. And she lived in this covered wagon that was so cool. Yeah. And how many kids were in each of those? I don't remember.
There's 4 in each covered wagon, and there's drawers underneath their beds. And one of my favorite stories is that the design of the covered wagon was actually patented by my great-grandfather, but no one's really ever wanted the patent.
You mean not that many other places want to have a covered wagon like yours?
Although someone did come up with a glamping wagon. It is actually out there, but it's very cozy and you can hear the river behind it, and they feel like they're roughing and toughing it. It
was just magical. The whole thing, she still talks about it a lot, and just I think that what you're doing is really incredible, and I love that you're sustaining this long camp stay.
Yeah, we have people, and we feel like we're up against, the school calendars, the sports coaches that say, you have to be back for this camp, or you won't make the team, or, this training, or whatever. But we are sticking to it. We feel like the design of our program and the things that the campers get to do by the end of the term, they need to be there for that amount of time. They're doing really big hikes at the end and harder backpacks, and they need to be able to acclimate to the elevation, and
they need to get altitude. In condition. Yeah, they're like basically working out for these.
Yeah, and one thing that we do to kind of help our kids, we had a longtime camp family that said, I hate to ask this, but our son is on the rowing team, and the coach is really freaking out that he's not going to be able to row for 27 days. And we said, you know what? We'll go buy a rowing machine. Right. And so we bought a rowing machine and we put it in the gym, and so he was able to wake up early and row. But the thing is that our kids go back to their sports and they're in great condition.
I think so. And then cross training. This is the thing. I think they get aren't they over? They say that everyone's over training on their one sport. Right. So probably going on a backpacking trip and getting that good cardio and climbing and all that and being in the altitude is probably great for almost every sport. Yeah. I'm sure they go strong. Yeah, they come back in better shape for sure. Yeah. Okay, so another thing I just want to touch on is well, first of all, what age do you start? How young can kids go?
Well, we just started, speaking of the time of the session, we started a mini camp for 7 and 8-year-olds for a week. Oh, great. And so we're in our 3rd season of that. We basically have a 3rd term, and that's a week long, and then 9 when they're 9.
Okay. So you have kids who come for a week to try it out when they're 7 or 8, and then starting at 9, they're eligible to come for your regular term. Yes. And do you probably don't know offhand, but how many kids, do most kids start at 9? Are you finding more coming around 10? What's the typical age? Do you know?
That's one of my favorite topics, actually. Our 9 to 11-year-old camps fill first.
Really? Okay.
So we are having a lot of 9 to 11-year-olds come. However, I also feel like I'm seeing a lot of kids start camp at 13, 14, 15.
Okay. Right.
I think one thing that we offer is that our playground is so vast with the Rocky Mountain National Park and just all the places that we drive to and go to, that we have some kids that have been at a camp where they're on site and then they come to us when they're 14 or 15.
Right.
or they're just not ready till they're 14 and 15. Right. And I love that because I think our high school program is just really rich.
Right.
Because they're forming friendships that they don't form at home. It dawned on me one day, I was standing there and I was talking to my niece who goes to Cheley. And when I see her outside of camp, obviously she's a typical teenager and she has her phone a lot.
Right.
And so I was talking to some of her friends and her at camp, and it dawned on me that how lucky are we that we get to spend time with these kids when they are just so present and so there with you, and they are looking at you in your eyes, and they're just so there. I'm like, well, gosh, who else gets to do this? Hardly nobody, unless you're in this industry. So anyway, I love that.
Do you have that same, you probably feel the same way I do. Like people, are kind of negative about teenagers, and I'm super positive about them because I don't know if it's just the kids who come to camp or the kids who come back to camp, but kids who are at camp, we see them at their best.
Yes.
I think we see them really at their good. They're really in a good, they're feeling happy. They're getting enough sleep. All these good things are happening.
Absolutely. I mean, I do not feel negative about teenagers. I think they're amazing. And interestingly enough, we're writing this history coffee table book for our 100th.
Right.
So I was going through pictures and I came across something that Frank had written in probably the 40s or maybe mid 30s. And it was talking about how kids were spending too much idle time indoors. And it said, I need to go back and find it. It said something about just passive entertainment.
It was probably listening to the radio back then.
I know, like what's
they were probably listening to the radio in their living room for too long.
He was how they were not outdoors enough and not,
Well, now just think how he would just, be awful. Oh my gosh, to imagine that. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think a lot of our camps were, the philosophies of the people who started camps.
Yeah.
The philosophies still hold true today.
Yeah.
Many of the things that, were way back in the 30s or 40s are still true today. They probably were indoors more than they needed to be. And now they're indoors even more. So even more reason to be outside. I'd love to invite you to join me in the summer read-along of Happy Campers, 9 summer camp secrets for raising kids who become thriving adults. For more information about my book and the summer read-along, visit happycampersbook.com. Okay, so I want to switch gears. I want to talk a little bit. So we're at this camp conference right now. We're actually doing this live, which is fun. And we were learning today about how shifting a mindset is what we're wanting to do with kids. Because it's not just that we want them to experience something that is good in the moment. We want them to have this shift in mindset from camp. And you were mentioning to me earlier about your own daughter, who is 12.
Yes.
And how she's not a big phone user, even though she has a phone. So I want you to kind of relate that to, she's been a camper at your camp.
Yeah, 5 years.
And also probably growing up with you and your philosophy and everything else. Or how do you think that works at camp, that mindset shift with kids about technology or phones? And do you hear about it from any of your other campers that they've changed how they feel about their phones or how much they use them after they've been at camp?
I often ask the question, how do you get teenagers to give you their phones? Like, don't they just have the shakes when they hand it over? And the answer is no. They like handing it over. They know that it's good for their brains. They feel it. And I think the connections that they make at camp are so fulfilling and strong that it really gets them through the school year. I mean, they look to those friends in different ways. They all meet up in different cities or call each other on the phone. I just was at a show and someone said that they were writing letters to each other.
I love that.
Which I loved.
Yes.
And so the friendships just really sustain from year to year.
Probably too, it builds on itself. So if they've been already for a year, they're anticipating, they know they're not going to have their phone. They know they survived fine the previous summer.
Yes.
And they're looking forward to all those good things that they see come out of that. So that's why I think when parents ask that question, they may not realize how wonderful the experience is going to be and how the kids themselves are going to notice that it's good to not have their phones.
Yeah. So I think with my daughter, she doesn't really look to it to fulfill anything. It's kind of just this thing that we gave her that, in case she needs to call us. So not yet anyway. And I hope that can stay.
But you've also, she's 12 and you do not allow her on social media.
Yeah, she is not on social media.
Which is a huge, if you read Untangled or any of these books that are coming out.
Yeah.
Basically, someone was calling it, I don't know if it was Lisa D'Amour in Untangled, or is it somebody else who said that the social media is like the second shift socially?
Yes.
Or something like that. Whereas kids and teenagers have always had just a pretty intense social experience, right?
Right.
At school, in life, and whatever. Now they have this whole other social experience that they have to manage. So they have to manage their day at school with people, and then they have to manage this whole other social thing, and it's really hard, and it's not good for their well-being. You know?
I feel like my kids have been saved from that at this point in time, for sure, especially their life in the summer. As camp kids, they're running around, and it's just not a part of our summer. The other thing I see and that I hear from our families is that the activities that we're doing are so challenging that they really have to push through that it gives them a basis to work off of in the school year. So I often hear, gosh, I hit this really hard point in my year, and because of camp, I knew I could just push through. Like, they get that they have the tools to do that. The other thing I love is with college essays. Oftentimes they'll write in their college essays about going on their 24-hour solos. We do this solo trip where they go out with just a notebook and a candy bar and an orange. Now that I'm a parent, I'm like, is that what we feed them? Really? Shouldn't we give them 2 candy bars? But they just it's not about eating, and I'm sure they get starving, but they take out a notebook and just be.
How old are they when they do this?
They've 14, 15, 16.
So, and they've been at camp already. It's probably towards the end or something.
Yes. Yeah, they work up to it. Yeah. But someone had written their college essay about being able to do that, and the 5-day backpacks and the big hikes and getting through the fear of being on a horse and cantering. And so I think that's the part that is giving kids those, just the tools and the skills to know that they have it. And I think that's so missing in our culture with school. They don't go to school and feel like, okay, I got this. Or social media. Like, how do you don't go into social media and be like, okay, I own this Instagram, right? You're on it thinking, oh my gosh, I am so lame.
Right.
We were talking about vacations and how Jeff went to California, and they were just kind of playing in this park. It was nothing fancy. And he was thinking about, gosh, even vacations get compared, because if you have this great vacation to, just a simple place, and then you get on and your friends went to, they were staying in a hut on top of the ocean in Bora Bora. You think, well, I thought my vacation was really fun until I got home and saw yours, right? Adults are not immune. No. But kids are more susceptible to the problems. Do you know what I mean? We're not immune to the comparison problem of social media, but kids are, at their age, when they're just forming their own identity, it's way worse even for them. Yes. Well, I think that one of the things, and I'm really excited about all the research that we're seeing come out around what the impact of camp on kids' development. What I have found really interesting is, what they're finding is that any length of camp stay is helpful for kids, but kids, the benefits kind of accrue. So kids who come back to camp, I don't know if you think this, I think the second year of camp is better than the first year and the third. Do you feel that too? I absolutely do. Yes. So when I think about Cheley, and one of the great things about your program is because they're coming for a longer stay, I think your benefits accrue faster. So for your kids, it's probably 2 summers. What would take 4 summers at another program. Right. Yeah, I absolutely think that. In fact, if I'm speaking to a parent who has a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or 11-year-old and they're feeling like they're not ready, it's really important in my mind to make sure that, I think, there's definitely kind of a line that you need to push, but to make sure that they're ready for the experience, because you want that first year to be successful so that it sets the foundation for them to want to return. I think the magic is definitely in multi-summers.
Yes.
We love watching these kids grow up. I mean, when they're leaving in that final year, I can hardly not get teary the entire weekend. Just watching them grow and develop into amazing people. It makes me cry talking about it right now. But
that is why what you do is so amazing. Yeah. And just this job, people wouldn't even understand it. But I think a lot of parents also don't understand that those changes are lifelong. Yeah. It's not just that this experience is happening for 27 days. It's that the things they've experienced in those 27 days translate to lifelong changes in the person's life. Like when you tell, the perseverance of oh my gosh, doing this climb that was so challenging. Yeah. And then being able to go back to school and they're a difficult teacher to work with or whatever else. And they're thinking, you know what, if I made it up that mountain at Cheley, I can do this too. Right.
And just simple things too. I mean, people say, well, what do you do when a child gets homesick? And I think when they're 9 or 10 or 11, sometimes that's a part of the confident builder. I mean, absolutely. Just really getting through that and knowing they can do that. And then I think for certain they are more prepared for college.
Oh my gosh, 100%. 100%.
Because they know they can get through it on their own, on their own 2 feet.
And they could not do that at home. This is the thing, because parents, it's very difficult to see your kids suffer or be uncomfortable in any way.
Yes, yes.
But they need to have those experiences in order to grow. Right. And so when your 9 or 10 or 11 or 13-year-old is homesick at camp, even if it's super painful, when they get through that, they come out the other end feeling so proud of themselves for overcoming that. And it's hard as a parent,
yes, absolutely,
to get the sad letter or whatever. But wow, you've seen it so many times, and so have I. So we can confidently tell parents, hey, this seems so hard right now, and I promise your child will make it through. I want to get back to something you said about readiness. So I just have this thing. I feel like if we all sat around, even as adults, waiting to be, quote, ready, we would never do anything. Right. Because absolutely. You know what? You can't really be ready until you've tried it. You get not ready, but you know what I mean? There's certain basic things that you could be ready on. But I think a 10-year-old who's a basically well-adjusted kid will figure it out. Even if they've never been away for more than a couple days.
For sure. I mean, I think that camp is not for every kid. I do feel that way. I think if you have a child that is super clingy and is really attached and you're trying to send them at 8 or 9 to a 27-day program, or they go on a sleepover and they have to call you to pick them up, then they're not ready. Right. But that's kind of what I meant by the fine line, because I do think there's a moment in time where they need to be pushed. And I often talk to parents that aren't ready, but the kids are ready. Yes. And in that instance, I think they need to come, because the parent can obviously, they'll work through it. But to hold on to your children just because you're not ready isn't right. I think some kids are just really independent and see you later, mom.
And have zero adjustment issues.
Oh, exactly.
I know. We've had, because we started even younger than you guys. Right. And I mean, people laugh sometimes at these kids who literally have no adjustment issues. You have 7-year-olds.
Yes, I can.
I mean, there are kids who literally just get there and they have so much fun. And you hope that they have some challenges, maybe scared of heights or something, because you want them to have something to overcome. Right. But for those other kids, I think this is so good. Well, Brooke, this has been so great. We'll need to do it again because we have so many things to talk about.
I know, we do.
But I will put a bunch of links to Cheley and to some of your posts and things about your program so that parents can get more familiar with it. And I'm sure, why don't you just tell people where they can find you too, where your information is about Cheley?
So our website is Cheley, CHELEY.com. And we also are on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
And you have some really cool videos, so we'll pick one to link to as well. Yes. So thanks so much for coming on today, Brooke. It's been great chatting with you, and I'm just hoping lots of kids find and discover Cheley and become more of your loyal families.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for joining Brooke and me for this episode of the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. As always, you can find notes, links, and more information at my website at sunshine-parenting.com. Search for episode 96. I have many resources about summer camp and the topics that Brooke and I discussed available on my website, and I'll put many of the links and resources on the show notes for this episode. If you enjoy the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, I would really appreciate it if you would take a moment to write a rating and review on iTunes so that other people can find out about Sunshine Parenting. Send me an email prior to July 31st with a copy of your review, and I will enter you in the drawing for a free copy of my book, Happy Campers: 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. My email address is audrey@sunshine-parenting.com. I'll leave you with a quote from a camper that I use in my book, Happy Campers. My time at camp has changed me in ways I never could have expected. I have grown into a completely different and happier person. I have become so much more confident in myself and have learned to always be true to what I believe in. I have learned how to make genuine connections and have face-to-face conversations with people I have never met before. I am so much more easygoing and positive because of my time at camp. Camp has taught me how to be the best version of myself every day.
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.